How did truth? So Chernobyl
Oh
was
yeah,
kind of
okay.
a cautionary tale that even a small lie can build up over time to a major catastrophe.
Yeah, it basically one of the biggest lines from the movie, or the one that stuck with me the most, and the one that really tied this in as one of the greater works of art that relates to truth, is that it really meditated and reflected on the cost of lies and the cost of, like, you could be so prideful in thinking that you could like bend reality to your will, but the truth bites back. Like, reality still exists. There's a real cost to lies, and that could be a lot of human life. In fact, there's a quote that, I hope it's this one. Hold on. What is the cost of lies? It's not that we'll mistake them for truth. The real danger is that if we hear enough lies, then we will no longer recognize the truth at all. What can we do then? What else is left but to abandon even the hope of truth and content ourselves instead with stories? Every lie we tell incurs a debt to the truth. Sooner or later, that debt is paid. Like, that is so true. Like, and
Wait, I have a question about the stories part, because it kind of put stories in a negative light. It seems like whenever it said that, well,
yes.
if truth is out the window, then we just concern
Content
ourselves
ourselves.
with stories. But I thought that stories, for them to be good, they had to be true. For
Okay,
art
I
to be
think, yeah,
good.
you're right. In this case, I think it's using stories
In a
as a
different way.
replacement for the real truth, like fantasy.
Oh,
You could say.
got it.
I think that's
Okay.
how it's meant. And it's
That
also
makes sense.
a
Yeah.
screenwriter writing this. Like, like, it's not like something that like was said by. I mean, I think it's very
I
true,
was
but
trying to understand. So that's what Jordan Peterson talks about. That it's always going to snap back.
that's
snap
right.
Back
You can't get away with a lie, and that's basically what this show.
I don't know if whenever he says these things, like in all my years as a clinical psychologist, I've never seen anyone get away with anything.
Yeah,
I'm
he'll
like,
say
is
that.
he just being cute? Because in the same way that he writes the chapters in the kind of
Yeah, it seems like a bold claim.
way. Because what does he mean? That's such a, he doesn't know all of the personal. I think he's making.
No, I think he's right. Because even if
How?
you don't get away with, even if you get away with it now,
I agree with
no,
him.
I agree with him too,
Just
intuitively.
kind of
No,
playing
I
devil's
know.
advocate, yeah.
I am too. I'm trying to defend something that I've had the same issue with. I'm like, okay, that's a bold claim.
Yeah.
People can get away with it clearly. Like, people don't always end up in jail. Justice is not always served.
Yeah.
But I think he means in a grander scale, you don't hide from God. Like, you can't get away from it. Like, in some way, it hurts
Yeah.
your soul. It distorts yourself from reality, from God. And in this life or the next, you will see your
Well,
consequence.
that's definitely very easy and intuitive to understand. But I never thought he meant it that way, because he's always so ambiguous about his.
Maybe I'm being overly generous.
His religious beliefs.
I don't think
So-
I'm being overly generous, though. I think that's what he means, because, of course, he doesn't believe that every single person gets their due diligence, like their due justice.
Yeah.
But I think he's read in a very deep sense that, like, you will not get away with this. Like, how prideful can you really be to think you can get away with distorting reality? Like, you're just you. You're not God, and you won't get away with that. And I keep saying distorting reality happens when you lie. That's a really. It's also, I don't know where I got it from, one of the philosophers, Augustine. That ties it to God. Like, to lie is to rid yourself from God, to go against that. If we take the claim that God is truth, then to lie is to abandon God, or to try to distort yourself from that.
To reject God.
To reject God.
Reject truth. Yeah.
But I love that last bit. Every lie we tell incurs a debt to the truth. Sooner or later, that debt is paid. That's exactly what Jordan Peterson says. That's exactly right. And in this case, the debt was I don't know if millions, thousands of lives. Like, it was a huge, huge catastrophe in a global scale that started with little lies. And you'll see this sort of thing in real life consequences in totalitarian states like Nazi Germany. Like, it wasn't like one bad person destroyed the country and caused so much death and suffering. It was inside of every person's willingness to lie to themselves, to their neighbors. Everything was a lie that allowed the state to grow in power. And that's also a similarity. Like, 1984 was kind of reflecting on, I think it was written after World War II. 1984 was written in 1961 was World War II.
1945 is
Yeah,
when it
so
ended.
yeah, that's right. So it was definitely like a reflection on that, like the dangers in lying to yourself, to society, and rewriting the past, in a lie that Jews are lesser than, like, said enough to enough people, and enough people, you don't even have to believe it, but just saying it, like, enough. 2 + 2 = 5. 2 + 2 = 5. What is truth? If, like, in 1984, there's a line that says reality exists in the human mind, and nowhere else. If enough minds are bent, then the truth bends. Of course, we don't believe that. The truth is still the truth. But what it's getting at is that if everyone believes that 2 + 2 = 5, what is 2 + 2?
Yeah.
You know, the greatest tyranny is not violence, but the power to dictate reality. And that's in the worst cases of tyrannical governments. That is what we see. It's an attempt to distort reality, and willingness of ordinary people to participate in that distortion by lying, by simple lies.